Welcome back to Return to Heart. In this episode, we explore how addiction impacts not just the individual, but the entire family system. We'll discuss unspoken roles and what it means to begin healing on the other side of addiction. Let's get started.
Hey, one of the things I like about doing this is I love the fact that we can get on here and hit record just with a topic, and then we just roll with it. No script, just like, let's just see what comes out, okay? Mm-hmm. And there's so much to mine there, relationally, experience that we have, pastor, clinical therapist, theologian, we mix all that. The chemistry of that to me is so fascinating. But also want to be able to hear from those who are following the podcast, what kinds of things are we not talking about that the listeners of this podcast that are on this journey with us want to hear. So, Todd, where would somebody email to say, hey, why don't you guys talk about this? I want to hear more about that, because otherwise we're just following our instincts, which might be pretty good some of the times, but there's some topics that would really help us to know that we're not addressing. We're going to hit one today. We're going to hit one today that I just think if I'm out there, I want to hear somebody talk about this. Yeah. Okay. And we're going to get there. But I just want to know, where does someone go if they want to tell us what they'd like us to hear us talk about?
Yeah. If you're listening on the podcast, then I would just say email us at info@tinman.life. If you're watching the YouTube, just in the comments, or you can email any of the staff. At Todd@tinman.life, Phil@tinman.life, Jeff@tinman.
They're not going to email me.
No?
They'll get buried.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, you can email myself or Phil.
Email Todd@tinman.life, okay, if you want a response.
Or make a comment in YouTube.
Or in the YouTube. We'll look at that too. Okay.
We'd love to hear from you.
I want you to get a response, which is why I didn't say email me. Because
you don't respond. I was going to say, if you respond to them, you got explaining to do. But you never respond to me.
True.
All right, so today we're going to jump into one that I'm thinking, if I'm out there on this journey with us in these conversations, I want to hear about. And what made me think of this truthfully was I was getting some feedback. From Brenda on this, my wife, and she just said, it's one of the places I got this feedback. She said, Jeff, you guys talk so much about compulsive behavior, addiction, which we dealt with extensively in the transformational process, a whole series. That stuff was rich. But she said, you guys probably need to talk about what it's like to be on the other side of that equation. What's it like to be the husband or the wife, the spouse, the child, the parent? Because we can all be in any of those roles, or the friend of somebody, in any sense of someone that you see or that you're living with in relationship, who is spinning slowly, headed over the cliff or over the cliff in a compulsive, addictive type behavior. By the way, it could be something that we don't even think is, most of the time, is someone says, well, workaholism. Boy, thank God that's why we bought this house. But even something like that, okay, but all the way from addiction, sex addiction, drug addiction, alcohol, food, money, shopping, whatever, but she said, what's it like to be on the other side of that? And it really goes back to when I got into recovery 20 years ago. And at some point I might share more specifics. I just want us to move into the topic quicker. But one of the greatest gifts I received when I was beginning to have to move through, really it was when I got to that place of admission and then acceptance. One of the places I had to do some admission to was Brenda.
Oh, yeah.
And I will never forget how afraid I was to tell her what I had to tell her. But I also will never forget the acceptance that I received from her in the telling. It may have been one of the holiest moments I've ever experienced. Now, it hurt her, terrified her. She was ticked off. All that was true. But underneath all that was a movement toward me that, here's what I'm going to say, there were some other women that had been meeting with her on her own journey about her own stuff, even in the relationship that we had, that prepared her for that moment. And by the way, I still thank God for those two women that really created the moment, because now I had a woman that I'm married to that she wasn't ready to deal with everything what I was telling her, but she was equipped with more of it because she was doing her own work around all that. And she was understanding the relational dynamic of addiction. But I think I want to talk about today, what's it like to be on the other side? What's it like to be the Brenda of that? Or or the parent of that, or the friend of that, or the spouse of that in any way, or some of us have parents that deal with this stuff.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Well, the famous statement from Johann Hari, the addiction and connection run on parallel tracks. We're made for connection relationally, and the thing, whether it's work, rage, control, spending, drugs, sex, alcohol, whatever it might be, that serves as the connecting point for the addict. And so it's so common for people to go, hey, man, it's his or her addiction. Like, that's not true, because that person connected to that addict, the husband, the wife, the child, the whoever, is not getting the connection or the openness to the connectivity from we'll call it the addict.
Yeah.
So when you're going to talk about the family, if we're going to talk about Jeff and Brenda, Todd, Jenny, Phil, and Sheila, we got to talk about Jeff, Todd, and Phil first, because our wives, children, people that love us want to connect with us. And if we're off in some addictive acting out or taking something in or acting out of ourselves, there's our connection. And so we're over here saying, well, I feel really connected. Work's going great or whatever. And meanwhile, there's an entire literal system over here doing without me, doing without that addict, because I've got connectivity and they do not.
Yeah. I remember early on, Jen just would tell me all the time, it's just so lonely to be with you. Just so lonely, and so chaotic at the same time. She would say, I've never been in so much chaos and yet so lonely in the chaos. And I was like, man. And, she, like you said, I'll never forget when I had to sit down and share, like, this is the impact of what I did to you. And, I don't know if I'll ever fully comprehend my full weight of what I caused to her. And, there's oftentimes now I'm like, man, I look back, the healthier I get, I'm like, man, I cannot believe I did that to her. Even last night, we're sitting around eating nachos and dip, and I had taken Jenny, this is early on in our marriage, I had taken her to a Mexican restaurant to eat, and we got in our biggest fight up until discovery over guacamole. And so I was just talking to the kids about that. Like, I'll never forget that time. And my daughter was like, it's just guacamole. What are y'all talking about guacamole for? And I said, no, Tennyson. It was way more about my selfishness. And the guacamole was really the thing. And I remember sitting there last night eating guacamole with Jen and the kids and being like, man, I can't believe, like, I don't know how she dealt with me that long, the selfishness. And yet you said, like, her compassion towards me, even last night, moving towards me over guacamole. And I was like, man, yeah, I wanted guacamole that night. But that was a bigger picture of Todd was going to get what he was going to get when he was going to get it. And I didn't care who took the ream of that. And I was like, man, now looking back, I'm like, man, I can't believe what I did to her. And I think that, I'll know about 80%, and there's that 20%. I don't know if I'll ever discover just the way it impacted her. So, yeah.
Yeah, there's, the infamous butterfly effect. The butterfly flutters its wings across the ocean and causes a wave, et cetera. It's really easy to forget those kinds of things. Like, man, I get so wrapped up, the addict gets so wrapped up in his or her connectivity over here, the rituals, the cadences, the patterns that addiction has. And there's another dynamic in play. The partners of addicts, there's this thing called attractor neurons. And so whatever dysfunctional pattern someone comes from will end up attracting them to the same type of patterns. And they'll say, I swore I was never going to do this, but here I am. Just how the brain works. It gets certain neural pathways and it stays in them. And so even on a brain level, the addict in the family and the rest of the family, there is almost a neuronal agreement to get into that, quote, relationship in the first place. And so that even in that regard, like those neurons are made, Hebb's axiom it's called, in the 1950s, neurotransmitters that fire together, wire together. And so the family is wired together neuronically, limbically with the addict, but then all of a sudden part of the wiring has disconnected itself. And these other wires are seeking connection. And then what can often happen to the family system is, well, the only way I can connect is to cooperate with the addiction. That's where you get words like enabling, those kinds of things. And children take on a certain family role to cover for what is happening. I know a dear friend of mine, I won't go through the whole story, but a dear friend of mine talked about how at the dinner table his dad had opioid addiction. And one of the children's role, unspoken, one of the hero child's role was, Dad, you look really tired after a long day of work. And then he had a brother who was a mascot child. So he just started acting out to draw attention away from what was clearly going on. And then there was another sibling in the family, and she was the lost child. She would literally get up from the table and just walk away, and no one noticed. And there was a scapegoat kid picking a fight with everybody. So all this chaos amidst all this unavailability. And meanwhile, the wife in this family, her role is that role of enabler. So that's just a simple little example at a dinner table of how all those roles can play out, because as we know from the literature, addiction is a family systemic disease. And everybody gets in their lane and does what they're supposed to do, because it may be where the phrase, if you can't beat them, join them, came.
Yeah. See, I'll develop those roles more, but let me just say this is a great example to me of early on kind of realizing the system part. And you talked about Jenny saying I was lonely. Some of the early marital work that Brendan and I did, the guy that was doing the work with us, I remember him saying to her, he said, you know, your husband has been almost impossible to attach to. Okay, to your point, what you're saying about, like, I was attaching everywhere else. I was attaching to thousands of people in a church I was leading. I was attaching to a pornography addiction that came roaring back in my Ford. You know, all that was. There was a lot of places I was learning how to attach. You know, I was not learning that I was going back to of how I'd learned how to find the closest thing I get to attachment. We talked about intensity versus intimacy. You guys talked about that in one of the podcasts. But I remember him saying to her, he looked at her and he said, it was gentle. But he said, boy, you're right. He said, let me tell you about Jeff. He's been really almost impossible to attach to. And she said, oh, yeah, he's been lonely to be with. But here's what he said. He said, but what's that say about you that for almost 20 years of marriage, that's been okay with you? Right. And by the way, you married him and you were attracted to a man who had a pretty crippled ability to attach in an intimate relationship, which really then we can sure talk about Jeff all you want, and we will, because Jeff's sort of the identified addict in this situation, and we're talking a lot about addiction in this podcast, but he was also gently beginning her to say there was still something going on in you. If you can't beat them, join them. Yeah. That you joined that somehow it was comfortable for you to be with a man that didn't offer more. Now, I think I know this now. Underneath that with her, she was lonely and she was dying for more with me. I can also tell you that when she started getting more, she didn't know what to do with that either. Yeah. Because we had learned how to dance a certain dance. Okay, which we work with. We work with this all the time. Okay, when a guy or gal starts getting recovery, the spouse going, wait a minute, I didn't like what I was getting, but I don't know what to do with this person. But it's the person I always wanted in the first place, you know. But go back to those roles, because to me it's not just fascinating; it's instructive in the sense that you fixed me on this quote. But every family is in a system. But the healthiest families are the ones that can name the system. Yeah. So the system doesn't own the family, but we can kind of like deal with it openly. So talk about some of that.
Yeah. The quote is, you know, there's one difference between functional homes and dysfunctional homes. Functional homes talk about the dysfunction. Yeah. And then what you guys are saying too. I remember in grad school sitting in my very first family systems class, and I remember the professor getting up and she said, this is what you all need to know as we start this. You either are or will marry what's familiar to you. And I was like, what? Yeah. So who is Jenny like in my family system? And part of it, you know, a caregiver, my grandmother, part of it is my dad, a part of it. Like, it's not one place, but I look back and I think, man, and it's because of that family system. Yeah. And the family system, if you think of it this way, in her work, Sharon Cruz or Claudia Black, I can't remember, they're kind of the gurus of family system, said every family system is like a mobile. So you think about a mobile that hangs over a baby's crib. It's all going to adjust to the addict. And so that's the first role. They identify 6 roles in every family. And here's the deal with roles, and I'll let Phil kind of weigh on this. Roles are strategies, how we make sense of where we come from. So we're all going to take on a role. This is their work, not my work. They say we're all going to take on roles to adjust to the system so that we can live in the system. Mm-hmm. So, but there are 6 primary roles, as one of the writers says. So.
Yeah, I love the way I think it's Cruz. You're right, though. Those two have written so prolifically, it's hard to know which one of them wrote which. But Cruz wrote that, I believe. But one fascinating thing about that, kind of in addition to what
I think I wrote it.
Did you?
No, I think it was actually one of them. I appreciate your willingness to take unabashedly shameless credit.
Keep going.
But I think it was probably
Keep
them.
going, Phil.
What book is it in?
The one that they wrote.
Oh, okay. Oh, they stole it from you.
Keep going,
okay.
Phil. Keep going.
Oh, yeah. Gosh, Jeff, that was helpful. I certainly hope you'll keep adding those jewels. Man, what we do
Well, I'm
without
playing
that?
a role right here.
You certainly are.
By the way, in every group we get into, we slide into those roles whether we know we're doing it or not, and I just did it.
You
Keep
sure
going.
did. That's called the mascot.
There you go.
So what's funny is these roles, although they may not all seem like it, they also function to keep the child from experiencing abandonment.
Yeah.
Like I was a hero child in my family. As a matter of fact, just 2 or 3 days ago, my sister, who's in her 50s, by the way, she's no child, nor am I. My sister texted me. I forgot the context. She said, "Oh yeah, I forgot. I'm sorry, golden child." She's describing the hero child. The hero child's job is to make sure everything's okay. We call it Enneagram 9, harmonizer. We call them all kinds of things, but the hero child really functions like, I won't be abandoned if I can perform so well that people think the family's doing great.
Yeah.
And there's a scapegoat child who says, you know what, all the cool roles are taken. Someone's got to tell the truth. It's close to what you said, Todd. Someone's got to tell the truth about what's going on in here. This is crazy back here. This is dysfunctional. Unfortunately for the scapegoat child, they often do it really poorly. Lots of addiction with scapegoat children and acting out and rebellion and that kind of thing, sloppiness and like unhealthy sloppiness. And there are lost children who they thought, man, this storm is too much. I am getting under the bed. Sometimes literally, I'm just going to keep quiet. And we've all 3 worked at the same facility, the same treatment center. And is it not unbelievable that we would treat these really high-functioning guys? I say guys because it was a men's treatment center. Certainly would be the same with ladies. But we would treat these super high-octane guys. And if a lost child came into treatment, if we were going to blow over somebody or not really be thinking about somebody, give somebody enough attention, it was always that guy. Lost children get scared. I wasn't going to say that, Todd. However...
Well, I remember we had these discussions like, have we noticed that we've just now come out of group and that guy, one guy's name never comes up? We'll go, oh, wait a minute, he's playing his role. Yeah. That was you, Todd.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
That was me. For sure.
Sure was, Trey. I mean,
See, on my end, I remember 'cause I was a patient at the same treatment center. What I remember about being a patient at that treatment center that we ended up working at was I remember is going in there trying to hide, like trying to be small, like trying to like just, in fact, I thought I was going, I'm going to be in here and I'm just going to be invisible.
Right.
Okay. And I was so beat, honestly, some of it was, I was just so beat up and beat down by by the consequences of my addiction and what it had brought me to life. And I said, I got nothing to say. I went from standing on a stage in front of thousands of people to now I'm in a little treatment center with 8 guys going, I got nothing. I got nothing. And I remember trying to be small. And finally, I remember about 6 weeks in, one of the guys in treatment just confronted me. And he said, and I won't get into the whole story, but I remember him saying, man, you're just the daggone orchestra leader. Like you're in here, tap, 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 and you're playing all these instruments. And I go, what? And I thought, and I'm thinking, you're full of it, you're crazy. And then I remember the guy leading the group, I don't know if it was you or the other guy, I remember him going, let's just get some feedback, Jeff. Let's go around the circle. And I'm going, they're all going to defend me. And every one of them going, yeah, man, you own this place. And I'm going, how did that happen? But I couldn't help, my point is, I couldn't help myself in the sense of, we will move toward, under pressure, we will move toward the roles we learned.
Yes. That's right. And because the families are a system and they operate according to certain parameters, and you get outside the parameters, we probably need to talk about that before we're done today.
Yeah.
But you get out of your role, the system gets all messed up and wants to get you back in it. And so
the term is homeostasis of a relationship. So it's like a watch. You take one little piece, one little cog out, the whole watch falls apart. So the system's going to force you, me, back into how it's going to function, even in the dysfunction.
that's right. That's right.
So keep going through the different animals in the mobile or the different roles. They keep everything in balance.
So the mascot child is the funny guy. You know, he interrupts to be funny, and he draws attention away from the pain by saying crazy things. For instance,
For instance, I don't know anyone like that.
no, me either. And then there's an enabler in a family. You know, the enabler is sadly, this is a sad statement about an enabler. I remember the first time it was a therapist who said to me, I was describing my family. And in my family, and I do not say this to dishonor either parent whatsoever, but in my family, my mother was the one in which all the activity revolved around. She was, I wrote a blog post about her one time and said, if people were a firework, my mother was a Roman candle. She was explosive. And then we had ended up making our dad a hero because he was able to endure all that. And I remember the therapist looking at me and she said, "You do realize, don't you, that your dad is the one that taught you how to be sick?" I'll never forget that. Like, the enabling parent is the most powerful person in the family because the children look at the addict, the one with and go,
the issue, the big issue everyone knows is the big issue.
Yeah, that. Hey, that's crazy. What do we do with this? And the enabling parent tells the children without telling the children, well, you just get in your role and cope with what's going on so we don't suffer overt abandonment because we're suffering covert abandonment for sure.
Say that again. Just exactly what you said. Say it again.
So the children intuitively ask the enabling parent, what do we do with this chaos? And the enabling parent, unspoken, of course, sends the message that says you stay in your role and therefore your lane, the homeostasis. You keep your cog going, like Todd was saying. You keep your cog going so you don't get abandoned and the family stays in some kind of organization.
An unspoken survival.
Oh, yeah. Hey, y'all, this is how we don't get abandoned. Just do what you're supposed to do. And like my friend illustrates at the table, that he said that was pretty much a nightly event. And notice how each of these children in that family fell into those roles, and mom enabled the whole thing by not calling it. When the hero child would say, "Dad, you must be really tired," mom would be like, "Oh, I tell you, honey, the way you work, I can imagine you're tired." "That's exactly right, Joe." The guy's name is not Joe. And then when the scapegoat child started acting up, she would do her duty and fuss at him and pick on and make sure that the whole family knew he's the problem. And when the lost child went away from the table, she got praised as being contemplative and meditative and no trouble. And the mascot child like, "Oh, Jimmy, you're so silly. I tell you what, that boy, you just never know what he's going to say next." And so every role around that table was locked into place. And that's how all those children didn't get abandoned, and how that enabling parent made sure nothing got out of sorts. And so everything stayed in control.
So is that all of them, or is there more? You listed them all?
So
List them all again. It's okay.
Yeah.
List them all again. These are what they are in a real succinct. This is what the hero child does for the system.
Hero performs to make the system look better than it is.
Okay.
Scapegoat performs to attempt to tell the truth, but it's sometimes poorly. Lost child is no trouble, gets out of the way, doesn't make any noise. The mascot child diverts attention away through being funny and charming and cute and precious. The enabling person, the enabler in the family, is the one that makes sure the orchestra, the conductor, to make sure everybody stays in their role. And am I missing one?
The addict.
Oh, and the addict.
So, go ahead. You were going to say something.
Yeah, I think one of the greatest scenes in any movie for this is A Wonderful Life. I mean, it's near the end of the movie, he comes home, and if you have a chance, I would watch that scene. It is.
He comes home, and what
masterful.
happens?
Everyone does their role. Yeah, he comes in. The dad comes in crazy. There's a girl coming up, trying to grab his attention. There's a girl doing the hero thing, playing the piano. There's one that's just kind of lost out in the way. I mean, it's masterful.
It is masterful. We've done this talk before around.
Is that the one where she says, keep playing? She tells the kid to keep playing.
Yeah,
he's playing the piano and the dad's raging.
That little lost child, the one thing in the entire scene that never stops is her playing the piano. She's background music, literally, and no one's paying attention to her. She's just playing her tail off back there. The oldest child, he's trimming the tree. He's learning the script. He's asking dad questions. The little bitty boy, he's putting tinsel on daddy's head. He's the middle mascot child. It's amazing. And little Zuzu is upstairs playing her role. She's sick. She's kind of put upon. So she's almost like a little hero. Oh, Zuzu, and also a lost child. She's just kind of out of the way. And it is a masterful picture of that, Todd.
So before we get further on any of this, let's talk about this for a second. So, we started this conversation talking about somebody who's living in relationship with the identified addict. Okay, and when we would say, for example, well, typically there's somebody who's going to be the enabler. Okay, it doesn't mean that the enabler is responsible for the behavior of the addict. It's not like somehow they're culpable or responsible for their actions. Let's take a few minutes to talk about, like, what does that partner, that parent, that child of need who's in that role, okay? And they need something, because it's not, because a lot of times we look and go, somebody needs to fix that addict. Like, if the addict would get well, we'd all be good.
Yeah.
And let's send him off to get fixed. And if he fixes everything. And what we're trying to say is that that's not. It's a system, and the whole system will need to be addressed. And if the addict gets some recovery, he throws the system out of whack because he's not playing his role as the addict. Okay, so I do think that other person, the spouse especially, I'm going, what does that person need? Because they have been deeply, deeply impacted and wounded. You talked about you and Jenny, even over the guacamole thing. But there's more to that, I know. Yeah. Let's talk about that for a few minutes. I think that's so important.
Yeah, I think it's not our work. It's the work of genius people that looked at, really ACA, adult children of alcoholics, and what that looked like in dysfunctional homes. And so they said every family has roles you live in, but then those roles and or chicken or egg, every family then has rules they live by. So family roles and family rules. The rules in an addictive family are, hey, you're not going to feel, you're not going to talk, and you're not going to trust. And so what you're...
Not feel, not talk, not trust. So I lose my feelings, I have no voice about my life, and I can't trust anybody.
That's right. So to answer your question, you got to change the family rules. And so a wife... In
or
our
husband,
case,
yeah.
Right. In our case, wives. In other cases, husbands.
Child.
Yeah, parents. They've got to be able to feel what they feel, trust what they see, and then say it out loud. And once that happens, the dynamics of a home then helps reset the roles.
Well, it turns into chaos at first, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Does it?
Yeah, it does. So... that's what you're talking about. You got whoever, the spouse, not the identified patient, but the ones that have felt the ripple effects of that have to reverse and begin to feel, trust, and speak.
There's a powerful illustration of what you're talking about, Todd. If you would imagine someone who is slowly but surely the first thing they do is they get a piece of tape across their mouth, and so they're not saying anything. They get tape across their eyes because they can't trust what they see. And they get tape over both ears. They can't trust what they hear. And then they get tape around both wrists. They don't have freedom of movement because they're so busy following the rules in their role. And then you get tape around their ankles, shackles around their ankles, and they can't move other than moving within the confines of how they're shackled. Yeah. And so the process, what you're talking, the chaos ensues the first thing to come off is the tape off the mouth and someone starts talking. And that's chaotic. Wait a minute. Our rules are, like in my home, I mentioned earlier, rule 1, only mom can be. We called it anger. Back then it was actually rage. But only mom can rage. No one else can do that. That was, for example. Well, I started getting healthy. I started talking about that rule. And that was kind of crazy. And I'm not kidding you. People that knew our family were like, oh, no. It was kind of amazing. Well, and then further chaos ensues when you start seeing things more clearly and you go, well, gosh, I love these people. And there's a period of time where it feels like betrayal to start getting healthy. Well, all the people getting healthy and like, oh, this doesn't feel right. And then you start taking the tape off the ears, and what is really feedback and love and healthy confrontation feels like criticism, and you're beating me up, and you don't like me anymore. And once you have a little bit of that, you start getting freedom of movement and maybe trying some things out, and then you can undo your own shackles from your ankles. That's an illustration of what we've been talking about here. But that whole thing is very chaotic because you can't see straight, you can't hear straight, you say things you haven't said before, and you're moving like you've never moved. So
someone who's on the other side of addiction, again, could be a child of mine, could be a parent of mine, could be my spouse, could be the addict. I'm going to go back to this point around that. What I'm hearing us say and what I believe, but that's why we're talking about it, is the mistake is to think that the addict just needs to go deal with the addiction. And if they would, I'd be okay. And what I want us to make clear is for the person who's on I am being deeply harmed by not being able to see, not being able to hear, not being able to feel, not being able to speak. What are the 3 things again?
Don't trust, don't feel, and don't trust, feel, and say.
Yeah. That person needs as much care as the addict.
Yeah, for sure.
Maybe more. Go ahead.
I would say more care due to the humiliation, rejection, and abandonment that level of disconnection creates.
Ooh, yes. And I go back to how we even started this podcast when I said the gratitude I have for these 2 women that for weeks were sitting with Brenda. And the shocker, I learned all this later because I was in a treatment center. The shocker later was how much they were helping her see herself before she had to deal with the bomb of what she was going to have to learn about me.
That's right.
That I'd been keeping secret from her about, which, by the way, to this point, too, before we ever got to that place of admission, which was this disclosure you talked about, we had weeks of preparation for that. She did.
Yeah.
I had weeks of preparation for that.
That's right.
And we did it with somebody who could help us hold what was getting ready to happen, because every construction site looks like a destruction site. And in that moment, it looks like someone just tore down the house. Okay. And the person who's finally starting to speak and feel and see and hear, there's a liberation to that. But man, they need, I almost imagine this when we think we need to send the addict off to a treatment center or a hospital or somebody to help. I go, but that person on the other side of it, you said, I love that you did, they need more care.
Yeah.
Yes.
And eventually they're going to get to be able to see how they brought themselves to the system for the system to get healthier, because they're going to have to learn to have a voice with that man or woman, whatever it is. But the other piece is, man, there was something I brought to it, but I can't start there. I got to start giving voice to what it's been like to live with this guy or this gal, or I grew up in this home, or, man, I've been in a relationship with this child of mine, and they walk into my house and I disappear because I'm so afraid of them rejecting me that I can't even tell the truth to my own child about what I see in their life or how it affects us when they come home or whatever it is.
Yeah, that's so true. I mean, again, I think for an action point for this podcast would be, the first is like, what role did you play with the addict? Because that's going to give you some voice, that's going to give you some context to help you with your own story. Like, how is, if it goes all the way back to the beginning, if I married what's familiar to me, how did I marry him or her and live that? Where did I learn to live with that? That comes out of our stories, that come out of our roles from, Jenny.
Yeah.
I did not create Jenny, though I harmed her in a lot of ways. She brought all that story into our marriage and she had already learned how to live with me. She had already learned not to have a voice. She already learned not to have feelings. She already learned not to speak out loud. And that was her greatest work, is rediscovering those things, that she could find a place within herself to see what she sees, say what she says, and feel what she feels. And then me, as the addict, I had to be willing to let her have those things.
Oh.
That was scary.
And to let her have her own journey in it, because the addict wants to move on from it. Hey, now we all know I'm getting help. Good. Let's move. And then, wait a minute, there's somebody here I've been dragging around for however many years. You know, it's so funny. I'm laughing at myself when I think about this. I remember I married a strong and capable woman who had learned to not speak about what she felt or saw with me. And I remember when she, kind of like a little, you know, when a puppy learns how to bark, you know, your little puppy, they just wing, 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 and then eventually they bark. You ever see a puppy bark for the first time and you go, ooh, and it kind of scares itself. I remember Brenda, when she started getting her voice, it was kind of like a puppy, you know, like, and she'd bark and then I'd kind of go, what was that? And she'd go, what was that? You know, and at first I was just going to say this. I didn't like it. I didn't like her voice. It scared the heck out of me because I was used to somebody that just kind of, she was a great partner, but she also didn't confront me, okay? I would say now 21 years into recovery with her and her with me, she's got more of a voice than she's ever had. And I will say this now, I don't always love it, but it is the most attractive thing about her to me.
Yeah, for sure.
And she has gotten there with help. She's gotten there with help. And I want to say this, we're not selling Tin Man when we say this, but the reason Tin Man exists is because very few people, if any, can travel any of this without somebody helping them do it. Could be a pastor, a good friend. These two women that helped Brenda early on, they weren't trained therapists. They were just godly women in our church that cared about her and took her through a Bible study called Gospel Transformation that just really helped her see some beautiful things, okay? So it doesn't have to be someone that's therapeutically trained necessarily. Sometimes it gets pretty complex, it needs to be. But my point is this, very few of us can do this well and can do it alone. And one of the reasons Tin Man exists is because we knew that the whole side of those equations, learning how to speak, learning how to, Feel, and?
Speak, feel, and trust.
And trust. That's a relational process that we need some help with.
Yeah.
And that's kind of why Tin Man exists.
That's right.
Is to be that kind of a resource to men and women, to help them in their own journey, spouses, family members in their own journey. And it doesn't have to be with Tin Man, but I'd say this, it probably needs to be with someone, because if a spouse or a dad or a child tries to engage that system, probably that's been in place, Phil, since
beforehand, because attractive neurons brought them together.
There you go. Right. You're not just going to blow that up without blowing that up.
That's right. Yeah. I think one of the keys, I think maybe a good place for us to end is you use the phrase Tin Man exists several times. And, you know, Todd, you barely said anything without including Jenny, and you, Brenda. Yeah. You know, well, part of the reason is we're relational beings, and we're talking about family systems. But, you know, one thing that the spouse, partner, child of an addict suffers is profound loneliness. Oof. And loneliness is the feeling on that list of feelings, those 8 feelings we talk about. Loneliness is so tied to other people because I don't know that I'm lonely until I'm having feelings about my life and there's no one to do them with. And addiction makes sure that addict is never available to do those feelings with. Therefore, what we're talking about, this systemic issue and the need for someone to help that spouse or partner or child walk through that, is profound because someone's answering my loneliness.
Awesome. So man, love this. All right.
Yeah, I would say this, you know, one of the things we offer at Tin Man, we do webinars, which is a deeper dive into some of these topics, where it's more a grad level education. And we do have a webinar just on family rules and family roles. So, and there's a lot of other webinars on there. But if you're interested, we go into more detail on each of the family roles that we play, but we also talk about, well, how do I get out of those roles? What do I do to begin to trust? What do I begin to do to see and to speak? And so that's another resource we do offer people.
And then finally, the Emotions Unveiled study is a great experience of starting to wrestle with where I come from, give voice to what I feel about it, and even begin to tell the truth about it by even writing it down in the way we do it in the study. That'd be another place to just get started to go, well, where do I go with this? I got to start waking up again to some stuff that I've gone to sleep to. So anyway, great discussion. Love you guys. This was great.
Let's do it again, boys.
All right. We will.
Enjoy it.
Thanks again for joining us on Return to Heart. To access resources mentioned on this program or to find out more about Tin Man Ministries, please go to tinman.org.